Okay, so shalom everybody. Sorry for my voice that is a little bit croaky today. I don't know why. I just got up like this morning. It was mentioned that people are in North America and some people are in Israel and maybe in other place. I wonder if there is anybody except me who is in Budapest right now. This is a place that my husband and I enjoy visiting. It's a long story that I'm not going to tell you today. So I'd like to say hi to everybody that has met me in the past, people who participate in my regular classes of Israeli poetry, and everybody else who is joining us today. I will start immediately by placing on the screen in front of us my PowerPoint presentation that will include the very same poems that you will see in the handouts that were placed in the chat for you to download. So let me start by introducing the framework of what we are doing. If you have been studying with me since October 7th, 2023, you may have come across the anthology, the bilingual anthology of poetry written between October 7th and Pesach of 2024, the first 6 months after the horrible tragedy of October 7th and the war that follows. That anthology was published with the help of friends and participants in my class, and has now sold way or very close to 7,000 copies, most of which in North America and quite a few in Israel and elsewhere. The poetry that we are handling today was not included in the Shiva anthology. And Gila, if it's not too difficult, maybe you want to look up the link to the Shiva on Amazon and include that for people who may not be familiar with the collection. So that is one option. What do we have in front of us? You can see on the left-hand side of your screen three emblems, symbols. The one on the left, you know, that's your own very organization. The two others represent a collaboration that was created during the early months or days, I should say, immediately after October 7th, 2023, between the Education and Youth Command of the IDF, K'tzin Chinuch v'Noar Rashi, and the publishing house called Mashiv Haruach, run by Eliaz and Efrat Cohen, which is a publishing house of poetry created for the last 20-odd years that it had existed, and I collaborate often with them and enjoy working with them. The collection that you have in your handouts and that I will attempt to address, but I cannot assure you that I can address all of it today. This is why you get the handout, so there is some more for you to read. Comes from the Hinneni collection, and let us see how that was created. So, as I said, very shortly after the tragic events of October 7th, Eliaz Cohen of Mashiv Haruach and the Military Education and Youth Corps have collaborated by giving opportunity to people serving, regular soldiers, reserve soldiers, occasionally spouses, occasionally health officers, social workers working as therapists with the soldiers, to do part of their way of handling what was happening to them through writing. And they started publishing small brochures of poetry, HINENI 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., until 9. And then when this activity sort of reached a moment of conclusion, the publishing house Mashiv Haruach went ahead to create a better edited book of more sifting through the poems and including those that we believe or they believe that will remain with us for many years to come. So we are going to listen to voices that were articulating pain, concern, belief, anger, frustration, and much more. It's a very emotional field of poetry, and it may create very deep emotional reactions. So I have suggested to Gila that if something like that happens and you mention it in the chat, I'm willing for you to stop me. If something touches you in a way that you need to react immediately, if something touches you in a way that you want me to say something in addition, don't hesitate. It's not a regular literature class. It's more in a way of conversation about people expressing their feelings. And we start with the first one that is probably the only one that is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, that has a little bit of humor in it. So let us read it. It is my minhag, my custom, to always read the Hebrew original poem first and only then address the translation. But the conversation will be through the translation only. Ein chinuch by Eliyahu Biton. לילדים של היום אין חינוך ומשמעת. אתה אומר שמור על עצמך, אל תהיי גיבורה, והם בשלהם. No proper education by Eliyahu Biton. Today's kids have no education or discipline. You say to them, take care, don't be a hero, and they do what they please. And I wonder if you can see that irony, this bitter humor, because this is the kind of remark that parents, grandparents will make if kids misbehave. And this is exactly upside down. You tell them to watch themselves, you tell them to take care, and then they go ahead and put themselves in the most horrible of risks to do what actually you have raised them to do. And that is defend that which is precious to us. So take a minute, and why don't you we take a minute just as an exercise for now, and see if somebody, I will not let you do that after every poem, but if somebody has a quick reaction to this one, raise your hand, or if you know how to operate the digital hand, it's even better. Toba, why don't you unmute yourself and just for a quick remark, you go ahead. But you'll need to unmute yourself. You don't know how to do that. Okay, so anybody else until we are waiting for Toba? Just a quick reaction to this short of a mini poem, almost like a Japanese haiku poem, very short, one central idea. Yeah, Ruth, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself, please? People, if you ask to speak, you need to know how to unmute yourself.
Yes, yeah. But sometimes, sometimes it takes a moment for the permission to come up. So my reaction is kind of a parental desperation.
Exactly. Expressed in sort of a irony. Yeah, okay. We'll have one more. Lynn, would you like to go ahead? Please don't forget to unmute.
Yes, thank you. My first reaction, although I don't know if we've seen that before in your class, your poetry class, was that's just that poem could have been written at any time in history, and parents would laugh and say, yeah, that's the way it is. But right now it has such more dire meaning because of where these kids are going.
Exactly. I was looking for that word, the dire word that didn't come into my head as I needed it. So thank you for that. I think I will not collect any more reactions right now, but I wanted you to have a sense, a taste of the ability to react immediately if you wanted to. And Tova, you're on your cell phone. I can see that. Okay. Beseder, let's go back to my PowerPoint and put it back on the screen as we continue. So this was like a first quick taster. The others will be, I'm afraid, a bit more complicated, much more painful. Dayenu by Daphna Shine, a woman. Daphna is a girl, soldier. And from the title, you would think that it would be more appropriate to maybe Pesach because of the Piyut Dayenu that we sing during the Pesach Seder, the Passover Seder. And I think it could have been written around Pesach of that first year. Much of the poetry that we collected in Shiva and in Hinneni addressed the Jewish calendar as holidays came by, like after Simchat Torah, we went to Hanukkah and to Tu B'Shvat and to Purim and to Pesach. And each of these Jewish milestones brought contemporary reactions. However, if you read this Dayenu, the sense is much more of the days of awe of Yom Kippur than it is of Pesach. Hebrew first. ואם חומה שיקרא בשער, ואם סגור שיתלה מנעול, ואם נעול שיהיה אי שם מפתח בידו של מישהו שמקשיב, וכשנקרא ישמע, וכשישמע יבוא, יפתח וייכנס כאור. Dayenu by Daphna Shine. If there is a wall, let a gate tear into it. If it's closed, let a lock hang on it. And if it's locked, let there be a key somewhere in the hand of someone who listens. And when we cry, may he hear. And when he hears, may he come, open, and enter like light. I think that many of you may agree with me that this is practically a modern prayer. A text that could easily be added to any machzor or any siddur in a way of prayer. And you do see how the translators understand that. There are Michael Bonin and Heather Silverman, Michael from Newton, Massachusetts, and Heather Silverman from Palo Alto. And they immediately translated for the English reader with capitalizing the H in he, because the Hebrew doesn't have capital letters. In Hebrew, it's not necessarily the divine that is addressed. It may be a call for somebody human to help, but our translators have made a choice, and by that forming the shape of a real tefillah, a new piyut for the gates to open, for the lock to be, and for the entrance like light of some help. If you think about the hostages, if you think about physical darkness, where people need the light to enter, and emotional darkness that many of us are in because of the suffering surrounding us, it is indeed that way. Joanne, go ahead. I am going to ask now for short comments. Bevakasha. Please unmute.
So I feel like it's not an either or. I feel like it's a partnership between the divine and the human.
I totally agree with you, Joan, but you see that in English one had to choose. The Hebrew allows you both because we don't have capital letters. In the translation, once you capitalized, you made a choice. So this is one of the things that languages with their particularities, sometimes that classical expression lost in translation. So we haven't lost a lot in this poem in the translation, but we did lose the ability for the two possible readings holding together. Rosa, can you keep that for a bit and let me do one more and then I will open up again. Is that okay? I hope it is, because I'm going to continue to the next one. So here we are going to listen to a very different voice of the poet Elias Cohen. Elias Cohen, he's one of the two people leading the publishing house Mashiv Haruach. He's a well-published, well-known, beloved poet, and he included one of his many poems. You can see more of him in Shiva, and I have taught classes about the poetry of Elias Cohen that you can find on my website. And here is a tone that I think, again, there is something tricky here. There is a wishful thinking. There is an expression of the disability to face reality. עכשיו תעצמו את העיניים. עכשיו תעצמו את העיניים, דמיינו. דבר מכל זה לא קרה. בעת לילה, אולי הזיה. זה מה שזה היה. פרי מוחו המשורר של הקודח. דבר מכל זה לא קרה. ולא עלו 1000 בסערה. ועכשיו פיקחו את העיניים חזרה. Now close your eyes. Now close your eyes, imagine none of this happened. A nightmare, perhaps an hallucination. That's all it was. Fruit of the poetic mind of the feverish one. None of this happened. The 1000 never went up in a storm. And now open your eyes again. There are 2-3 quick remarks that I would like to make, offering some insights that may elude you. In the line, but last, the 1000 never went up in storm. That's a line that dates the poem, practically with the original meaning of the word day, dates, because this must be a very early one, maybe October 10th, maybe 12th of 2023, when we thought the number of victims was 1,000. And we well know how many more they are and how many more since. So this, without looking up when Elias had published this, probably for the first time on his Facebook page, which I follow and you can too, I highly recommend if you have Hebrew, you see that this was an immediate reaction, and I'm hanging my other readings of this poem on that observation, that when a tragedy hits us, a terrible loss, isn't this one of the quickest first reactions? It cannot be true. It's not happening. It's a nightmare. And Elias gives expression to exactly that very primary natural reaction when something we find so hard to handle hits us, and the first reaction, it cannot be true. It's impossible for this to be true. And he is inviting all of us to join him in that belief for a moment. Close your eyes. Imagine none of this happened. A nightmare, perhaps a hallucination. That's all it was. Fruit of the poetic mind of the feverish one. In Hebrew, normally you would say, fruit of the feverish one of the poet. And he reverses the order. That in itself is a suggestion of a reverse world. It is so much more natural to believe that none of this happened than to accept the fact that it did. And therefore, the poem that started with close your eyes is now inviting us to face the terrible reality. And now open your eyes. It did happen. It is still happening. It is with us. Let me take again a very quick break for people reacting to this or the previous one. If there is anything that you feel you want to share with others as you see these two poems, the closed gate and the light that needs to enter alongside the wanting to hang on to a belief that it never really happened, and the difficulty of facing the reality of the fact that it did happen. I'm checking to see if there is a hand anywhere, and I don't see any. So I think we will continue. Yes, please, Toba, go ahead.
It reminds me, and the last 2 years reminds me of the morning of 9/11. When I was in Brooklyn, New York, and I was in school, and the kids were being picked up by their parents, and the man who was the head of the custodial staff said to me, "Toba, what can I do?" And I said to him, "Make it go away."
Make it go away, yeah.
Like, make it go away. And it's just so unreal. And it was so unreal that day as well. But the poem is just beautiful. Thank you.
So. Yeah, I love Elias's poetry very much. There is a book of his poetry translated into English. Shema Adonai, it's called, a reversal of the Shema prayer. Look it up. It's available on Amazon as well. Okay, let me take you back to my PowerPoint presentation as we continue to the next poem. So with this one, I wish we had two readers. I wish one of the readers could be a male voice and the other a woman, but I think that you can add with your imagination. A Call from Reserve Duty by Nathaniel Allinson. There's a lot of his poetry that has been published since, and here we go. Ivrit first. You can see with the hyphens at the beginning of every line that it's a quoted conversation. מה שלומך אהובה? מרגישה מצוין. נושמת עמוק, מסתירה את הכאב, כי יודעת, אם הוא ירגיש שטוב לנו, יוקל לו. ומה שלומך אהוב? ממש טוב. מטאטא את אי הוודאות, אם היא יודעת שטוב לי, היא שמחה יותר. ככה שנינו משקרים זה לזו מאהבה. והרי כבר אמרו חכמים שמותר לשקר מפני השלום, ועכשיו זמן מלחמה. A Call from Reserve Duty by Nathaniel Allinson. How are you, love? I feel great. Breathing deeply, hiding the pain, since she knows if he feels we are okay, it will be easier for him. And how are you, love? Really well. Sweeping aside the uncertainty, if she knows I am okay, she is happier. This is how we both lie to each other out of love. Didn't the sages say that it's permissible to lie for the sake of peace? And now it's wartime. And again, I'd like to start reading or sort of uncovering a little bit more of the layers of this poem from the end. Actually, Nathaniel Allinson, I suppose his wife as well, are observant people. This is not a necessity because Hebrew Israeli poetry quotes Tanakh, quotes Torah, quotes Mishnah, regardless of the level of observance of the participants, readers, and writers. But here I know for the fact that they are both versed in the world of Jewish learning. And indeed, he is quoting a tractate from the tractate of Yevamot, and let us read. And Rabbi Eli further said, in the name of Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, it is permitted for a person to depart from the truth in a matter that will bring peace. As it is stated, your father commanded before he died, saying, so you will say to Joseph, please pardon your brother's crime, etc. Genesis so-and-so. Jacob never issued the command, but his sons falsely attributed this statement to him in order to preserve peace between them and Joseph. So look how easily and how close to the surface is a Talmudic quote in Israeli poetry. And now let's go back to the poem and what it describes. It describes a conversation that is based on untruth, on lies. And if you told that to anybody, that we are listening into a conversation between a married couple who are lying to each other, one could on the surface assume that this is a bad relationship, that this union is not working, that this married couple is somehow unfaithful to each other. And this is exactly the reverse. They are lying to keep peace. They are lying for love. And the poet says, this is how we both lie to each other out of love. Actually, the Talmud said you are supposed to say that for the sake of peace, and he is now adding another layer. Maybe for love as well, you are allowed occasionally to change, to say an untruth. The other thing raises a question, because the rabbis say that it is allowed to lie for the sake of peace. We are lying to each other during war to permit each side of the family, separated by the call for duty of the husband, to perform better during war. And that in itself is maybe an additional reading of the Talmudic permission to lie. Okay, keep that in your heart as we continue. Jot down comments if you have any, and we will go to the next one. I want to go to the next one because it's a complicated one. It's literally one of the toughest poems I ever taught in the whole of my career. And I need to teach you a specific level of Hebrew before we start. I will teach you a few words, and I will keep the dictionary on my presentation for every single verse of this poem. So here is the dictionary. This is a military wireless code dictionary. When you speak on the military wireless at wartime, there is a code of words that stand for other words that you need to use. You are not allowed to use the original. Kod, crown, means commander. Gafror, match, means soldier. Perach, flower, means wounded. Hardof, oleander, means dead. Namer, tiger, means armored vehicle. Can you see that? Kod, commander. Gafror, soldier. Perach, wounded. Harduf, dead. Namer, armored vehicle. The poem has two parts. It's a dialogue between a soldier who is actually talking to God, the top commander, and in the second verse, the great commander comes down and talks to the soldier. I forgot the last one, ktana, small one, a minute. And now we can move to the poem. I'm reading the Hebrew, and I'll do the Hebrew only for the first verse, and then we will continue naturally with the English. קודקוד כאן גפרור, אני בנמר, יש לי כאן פרח וקלושים על עליו. קודקוד שתי קטנות את תשומת לבך, כי נפגענו, נתקלנו, נפצענו בקרב. קודקוד רחום במחילה שאלה. קראנו ואירע וגם אני שמעתי, וניסים ומכות והיד הגדולה, והזרוע ההיא הידועה, והוצאתי והצלתי. קודקוד חנון הוא מדמם לי, הוא נובל, ואני רק יכול לנסות להרגיע, להרסל את הראש וללחוש, למלמל, לשקר לו לפרח שנספיק להגיע. שאלתי קודקוד עליון, אם יקרה לנו מופת, או אות אם יהיה, או נס אם יבוא. בקשתי קודקוד צלח, אם ברגע האמת יוכה האויב, ייפול על חרבו. Crown, this is match by David Harband. Crown, this is match. I am in the tiger. Let me put the dictionary up for you again. Crown, this is match. I'm in the tiger. I have a flower here, and his leaves are weak. Crown, two small ones of your attention. We were hit, we engaged, we're wounded in battle. Merciful crown, sorry, a question. We read Va'era, and I have now heard the morning, these are all quotes from Genesis and Exodus. Miracles, plagues, the great hand, and that well-known arm I brought out and I delivered. Merciful crown, he is bleeding in my arms. He is fading. And all I can do is try to calm him, to cradle his head and whisper, mumble, lie to the flower that we will arrive in time. My question, most high crown, is there going to be a miracle? Will there be a sign? My request, forgiving crown, at the moment of truth, will the enemy be hit? Will he fall on his sword? Two layers, at least, to address. We are witnessing the whispered prayer of a soldier watching over a comrade who was badly hit, and there is nothing he can do for the comrade, but mumble lies that they will arrive on time. The comrade, the match, gefror for a soldier, is now a flower wounded. Will he die and become an oleander, or will there be a miracle? So this is a very concrete flow of thinking, of emotions, of thoughts that a soldier experiencing, holding a dying comrade in his hands, in his arms, is addressing to the divine, most high crown, forgiving crowd. And the poet David Harband is using the language of wireless code in the military. It's not just Hebrew, it's an additional level of language known to those who know the code. But there is another code. There is the biblical code. Hello, what about the great arm that delivers from the book of Exodus? What about the promises I have now heard, the morning and Vayera and so on? The soldier who is expressing his pain in the code language of the wireless is also using the Jewish code that we all understand, because we know the Parshat and we know about the promises. And he is asking a very simple question. My request, forgiving crown, at the moment of truth, will the enemy be hit? Biblical quote. Will he fall on his sword? Biblical quote. We are now moving to the second verse of the poem, and I'm giving you the dictionary again. The voice we are hearing, the poetic narrator voice, had switched. instead of the match, Gafror, soldier, talking to crown. It's now crown talking to match. Gafror kan kodkod ani kan banamer. Match, this is crown. I'm here in the tiger. Clean the face of the pale flower. Adjust his blanket so he will not catch cold. Match, this is crown. I'm here in the tiger. Match, there is no miracle. Match, here is comrade. I'm in the blood, in the suit, in the backpack. I'm in the Negev, at Mount Tabor, in the Galilee. I received the flower you just dispatched. The oleanders I picked this fall are beautiful. You no longer serve under me. You are my brother. Into your hands I entrust my spirit. Encha avdi od ata achi, biyadcha afkid ruchi. The poet, for the second verse, have done that which we oftentimes do, believing when people ask where was God in the Holocaust, where was God on October 7th, the answer is in the tiger, I am with you. As I have been in Mount Tabor and the Negev and the Galilee, all those biblical events. But we also learn from the second verse that the flower had turned into an oleander, that the comrade had died, and therefore crown is not in command anymore. Crown becomes the comrade. Ata achi, you are my brother, and he, the divine he, will entrust into the hand of the soldier his spirit. It's a difficult one, I know, so I'd like to give you a moment, if you have any, to react, if there is anybody who would like to. You don't have to, but I'm checking, and Gila, please check as well if you see anything in the chat, or anybody who would like to address this one, or the one before. Yes, Ruth, bevakasha. Go ahead. Please unmute, yeah.
Yeah, these two poems remind me, my brother and sister-in-law are in Haifa and are well, but I worry all the time. And what my brother does, he goes on his walks and he takes a picture of the most peaceful scene that he can see around him. But I know he's trying to reassure me that where they are, that they're not in danger, which I don't believe that they're not in danger, but I guess at least I feel that they are relatively safe.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? Okay, I'm checking again. Yes, Rosa, bevakasha, go ahead. Please unmute.
Well, this last poem just brought me to tears. This was so heartfelt and so beautiful. I had in the 1948 war, I had an uncle that died at age 22 in the field. He was a medic in the Palmach, and he went to rescue his commander that had fallen, and he was blown up in pieces. So this was such a touching poem, unbelievable.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you so much. We are going to switch tone for the next one, because that too is part of the experiences that people are living here, and I want to really have a taste of as many options as possible. So let me continue. I will skip this one and go to the poem of Shirley Cohen-Gill. I will not tell you what she does beyond writing this and other poems, but we will try to figure it out from the content. And people who are in the caring professions, psychologists, social workers, tune in. It's about you guys, or more so about people who are there to help emotionally and mentally those who need that kind of help. פעם היו נזהרים על הסדקים. I'm going straight to the English. In Ronnie's home, all the shutters are closed. Her soul is turned to the wall. She doesn't want to live in a world of announcements about dead soldiers. Miriam hasn't gone to work for a month. Air raid alerts trigger panic attacks. Also motorcycle sirens and people too. So she's at home watching horror film clips. Gilly obsesses about the rape victims because she too is a survivor and the details titillate. Once upon a time in the old world, they used to care about the cracks, no longer. So she lapses into peeling wounds. Their psychologist is very tired. She meets them in the morning, one after the other. At noon, she hurries to her children, thrusts a ready-made schnitzel into the oven. She slices vegetables, stretches on the blue sofa, peeks at the pornography of news. She knows it's really not good. She has heard it from all the lectures, in all the lectures at all the schools she listens to at night, to gain knowledge, tools, strength, to help her patients. She herself is really fine, breathing all the prescribed breath. And she has dozens. She keeps saying, literally preaching, when everything around her is falling apart. That breathing is an anchor. Now her own daughter is shrieking, I'm not going because I don't feel like it. She breathes into her belly, inflates it like a balloon, exhaling slowly on a ragwort flower. Her daughter is crying. She wants to as well. And again, as you have seen me do in this session more than once, I'm starting from the end. I think it's pretty clear that the poetic narrative voice in this poem is of a person who is called upon to offer help to people like the one who doesn't leave her home, like the one who turns to the wall and cannot face the world. She herself is either a psychologist or a therapist or a social worker, somebody like that. And she needs to hold it together. And she knows the theory that it's not good to watch those movies. Now, when they use the word, the pornography of news, it's not real pornography. It's the video clips of what was happening on October 7th that everybody tells you you shouldn't watch, and you watch in spite of the fact that you know it's not good for you because you just obsess with that. And she's taking all these classes that professionals were offering about breathing and about relaxing, but they are dead tired. And they cannot handle their own families anymore properly, and they cannot handle themselves anymore properly. And when their child has a tantrum, she tells us, practically whispering at the end of the poem, she wishes that she could have a tantrum as well, which she cannot afford to have. It's now 10 minutes to, and I'd like to give you a few minutes to discuss what we have seen. So I want to present you with a poem that is at the heart of Israeli poetry of wartime always. There is a central metaphor that keeps surfacing in Israeli poetry, and that is the metaphor of the Akedah, of the binding of Isaac. And people who have studied with me throughout the years know how often and how many Akedah-related poems I taught you, poems that use this metaphor of a father that is called upon to sacrifice his son for a cause, for an ideology, for a higher level. And what is the most precious value, the love of your son or the love of the country or God or faith? This particular one, written recently by Shlomi Chatuka, faces or presents the binding of Isaac in a way that is painful, that is angry, that is using other biblical quotes to express an anger, not necessarily at God, much more so at the way things are run in the country before October 7th and since. Akedah. Lech lecha, לארצך, למולדתך, לבית אביך, אל המקום אשר אריך, שם יחטפו את בנך, את יחידך, אשר אהבת. A direct reversed quote of the Akedah. The Akedah says, go forth from your land, and this is now go to the land, binding. Go forth to your land, to your native land, to your father's house, to the place that I will show you. There they will kidnap your son, your only son, whom you loved. I don't think that you need me to elaborate in too much detail about the bitterness, the disillusionment, the anger, and what transpires in our society since. So I left some 6 or 7 minutes for our conversation, and I hope you will take the opportunity to express your thoughts, your feelings, questions, if there are any. Joan, why don't you start us off? Please unmute. You're muted, please unmute. Now you're good.
I was lucky enough to have an Israeli friend visit me here in California between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And she tried to tell me, among various other things, and we had fun too, but she tried to express to me what it was like to live as an Israeli in Israel these days. And as much as she could do it, and as much as I thought I understood, now hearing these poems, I realize that I really didn't get it, and now I get it. So thank you.
You're getting it a phase more. You did get something from your conversations.
Oh, and definitely. Definitely. But now, I mean, and she's a professor too of art and architecture. She was here for a conference at a university. I mean, she's an incredibly verbal and expressive person. She has a son in the military and grandchildren, and she tried to tell me what it would be like.
Poetry does something else. What did the poetry do for you, Joan?
It just gave me the feeling. She tried to tell me what the atmosphere was like, what I wouldn't find the same. The last time I was in Israel was in the summer of 22. She was trying to tell me how different life is. And she said maybe people who come as tourists don't even recognize it. and sort of like this miasma that kind of hangs on everything. And I thought I understood, but there's something about these poems that are just so beautiful and so raw. And so I guess, I guess poetry can do something that, other kinds of words can't. So I really thank you for
Thank
this.
you so
It's
much.
amazing.
Thank you. Anybody else? If I know that sometimes it's hard for people to react to this poem exactly for what Joan had said, because how raw they are, how laden with emotions they are. So if I see that there is no conversation, I'll take the last 5 minutes and read one last one to you. But Miriam, why don't you go ahead? Yeah. Please unmute and turn off your camera if you're willing. Turn on. Yeah, good.
I'm an Israeli who lives in the United States. I've been here for about 40 years, served in the army, lived, done it all while in Israel. Now, this last poem really brings me to tears because my sons are here, my grandsons are here, they're not serving. Do they go back and serve? Will they be kidnapped? I mean, this is such a hard feeling and the dilemma, I think, of all Israelis who left the country and who are watching now of what is going on. So thank you for that. All these poems are just incredible. And one question, is the book available on Amazon, like the Shiva?
Shiva is available.
Shiva is, but this one, the Hineni.
No, Hinneni, and it's not translated, but you can find it if you
it's not translated because we have the translation here.
Yeah, and I taught you in translation, but these are translations made for our classes and were not published.
So you didn't publish it as a book yet?
No, I did not. It's a Mashiv Haruach publication, and only the poems that I gave. I have a few more from Hinneni. If you write to me, I have about 20 from Hinneni that I have translated.
I'd love to. I just love to.
Can you see my last name?
I'd like to share it with my kids who don't know Hebrew. אני מדברת עברית, אבל הילדים
שלי לא. Miriam, email me. You can see my name on the screen, Rachel Korazim.
Yeah.
Okay, so take just the Korazim, just the last name, korazim@gmail.com. Just the last name. Under my name, you see my last name, Korazim?
Yeah.
Take the last name, korazim@gmail.com. Email me and I'll explain to you how you can get a copy. And thank you.
יופי. תודה רבה, היה נפלא.
Anybody else, dear friends?
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Or something that came up in the chat.
Do you think this is a new genre of Israeli poetry, or do you think it fits into the wartime poetry of other poets like Chaim Guri?
This is just like everything that our Jewish libraries include. It's a layer after layer after layer, always in conversation with previous layers. And you can see in this recent poetry, literal conversations with Alterman, with Bialik, with Guri, with Leah Goldberg, etc., etc. And you can see, of course, the biblical, of course, the Talmudic. Israeli poetry is never disconnected from the phases before. Even the newest, the language in itself contains the imagery, the metaphors of before. So this is just another shelf in the library of Jewish poetry from times immemorial. And thank you for your question. Is there anybody else?
No, I will probably get from you, maybe Rachel, and distribute to everybody. Is that allowed, what you suggested?
The collection that I have in any, yeah, of course. And students who participate in my classes, we studied the whole Hinneni collection last year. So many people have it already, but I will send it to you and you can distribute it because I have the permission of the publishing house to use it for my class.
Thank you so much for opening our eyes and our hearts in many ways tonight. Very much appreciated, especially coming up to the anniversary of October 7. We all pray for the release of the remaining hostages. Moadim l'simcha to everybody.